In this video, I will analyse the opening movement of Elisabeth Lutyens' Présages, a work for solo oboe from 1963. Lutyens was an important serial composer in that she was the first British composer to use serial techniques, and by the 1960s had developed a distinctive lyrical serial language. Her interest in the technique stems from a connection to three figures. First, Lutyens was a friend of Dorothy Gao, a student of Egon Welesch in Vienna. Second, she married Edward Clark in 1942, a student of Arnold Schoenberg. And third, she was a close friend of Italian serialist Luigi Dalla Piccola. In this video, I will analyse the opening movement of Présages, a representative work of Lutyens' 1960s compositional language, especially her linear approach to serialism, which is exemplified by the single line throughout. Présages has ample primary sources, including a row chart, a pencil draft, and an autograph, although lacking any sketches between the row chart and the near-complete draft. Présage, a French term meaning omens, was written for solo oboe in 1963 and premiered at Wigmore Hall in 1965 by Janet Craxton. The work is a theme and variations derived from a recitative called Cassandra's Lament from the earlier music drama The Oresteia. Before turning to serialism, let's look at what makes the opening movement or theme a recitative, as the title suggests. There is a clear recitative aesthetic suggested by the sense of rhythmic freedom, the high degree of repetition and declamatory nature of the music. Turning to Lutyens' autograph, we can see the clarity and the detailed expressive markings and phrasing. This attention to expression supports Joseph Strauss's dispelling of the serial myth of inexpressiveness and implies a sort of lyricism. This is strengthened by how the recitative is derived from a vocal work. Let's listen. On the next slide, we see the row chart for Présages. It is perhaps surprising to find a row chart for a work based upon an earlier work. Lutyens' row chart shows all normative serial transformations. We have prime on the left, inversion on the right, alongside retrograde and retrograde inversion with all 12 transpositions. Thus, this systematic approach is not that different to the modern Babbitt square. A notable exception is that C is not 0 and instead the emphasis is placed on P5 starting on F, which acts like a home row in the work. Furthermore, it is important to note that Présages uses only one row throughout. Next, we will zoom in on the first row of the chart, P5, where Lutyens has indicated a segmentation of the row into trichords, highlighting the repetition of set 3-1 or 0-1-2 in the first and third trichord, which creates a sense of coherence in the row. While Lutyens notates all the intervals in their most compact forms, there is a major sixth between notes 6 and 7, using register to demarcate the row into two hexachords. Next, we turn to examine the intervallic properties of the row. Of the 11 intervals, there is a complete lack of interval classes 5 and 6, and a plethora of interval classes 2 and 3. This emphasis on interval classes 2 and 3 allows for intervallic coherence within the row. The major and minor thirds are treated cautiously to avoid tonal illusions. The opening recitative comprises two slow-moving iterations of P5 with a high degree of repetition that can be heard as a loose additive process. This repetitiveness may be a surprise, but it makes the work no less serial, according to Joseph Strauss's busting of the myth of non-repetition. The repetitiveness also foreshadows Lutyens' later style of the 1970s, characterized by repeating ostinati. Most interestingly, Lutyens does not appear to want the phrasing to highlight the serialism, as illustrated by the dissonance between the serial and phrasal readings shown, and thus pushing the serial process towards the background. Now we turn to see the pitch classes are introduced in groups of 3, as Lutyens introduces one trichord at a time. This trichordal compositional process behind the recitative creates the feel of a loose additive process, and this process confirms Lutyens' aforementioned annotations on the row chart. Assigned to the row from the beginning, register is clearly important as both a formal and timbral device in Présages. The first half of the recitative is in one registral position in the first iteration of P5 that is then changed in the repeat. The first 5 notes are swapped, whilst the D flat remains the same and the last 6 notes are placed down the octave. It appears that Lutyens would have inverted the contour all the way through the row, but this is not possible due to the range of the oboe. It is worth noting that on the oboe, lower notes are louder and create more of a honk, while the higher notes are softer and shriller. Thus, timbre is a consequence of register. Noting the fixed register of the row notes, this demonstrates the prominence of register from the outset, as well as creating a connection between serialism and timbre.